Okay, think about this for a second. What if a single brilliant mind has spent the last 50 years as the grand architect behind a secret government program? A program to build an engine that literally breaks reality. Well, this isn't science fiction. This is the real story of a hidden technological revolution and the one man who quietly designed the entire thing.
The name at the absolute center of this puzzle is Dr. Harold Howe Puthoff. You have to understand, for half a century, he's been the constant, the undisputed key figure right at that intersection where bleeding-edge science meets the deepest, darkest corners of national security. He is the architectural genius we're talking about.
So what's his life's work? It's something called space-time metric engineering. And look, to put it simply, this is the applied science of engineering the quantum vacuum. We're not talking about just observing it. We're talking about actively manipulating the very fabric of space-time itself to create technologies that shouldn't exist. Things like revolutionary new ways of propulsion. This is the holy grail of physics.
And this is where the story takes a really concerning turn. Dr. Puthoff wasn't just some academic exploring a fascinating theory in a lab. No. He was the designated leader of a clandestine, government-sponsored track to take this profound, reality-bending physics and turn it into a weapon. And how do we know this? Well, we know it for a fact. The title you're looking at right here, this is from a major paper he wrote, not for some university, but for the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency. This document is the smoking gun. It is irrefutable proof of a high-level government program to turn this physics into a strategic asset. And they've been at it for decades.
So the big question is, how did he do it? What was the master key that could actually unlock space-time? Well, that brings us to the theoretical breakthrough that underpins everything. It's a concept called extended electrodynamics.
And what's so incredible here is just how fundamental this idea really is. Puthoff literally went back to the bedrock of modern physics, Maxwell's equations, and realized something huge was missing. By reintroducing these previously ignored potentials, his theory of extended electrodynamics, or EED, it doesn't just describe reality, it gives you the toolkit to engineer it.
The difference is just staggering. You know, classical physics, it describes the world as it is. EED lets you act on it. So instead of needing to push mass out the back of a rocket for propulsion, you manipulate space-time directly. Instead of signals being blocked by a concrete wall, they just ignore it. This is a complete paradigm shift.
And the implications are, they're just staggering. It's a leap straight into what we used to call science fiction. I mean, just imagine creating force without pushing against anything. Imagine communications that can't be jammed, can't be shielded. Imagine directly engineering the fabric of space-time right where you're standing. This theory provides the literal blueprint for an engine that breaks our fundamental understanding of reality.
Now, a theory this powerful doesn't just stay on a blackboard for long. Not when the government is involved. And this is how it was built into something far bigger, a deliberate, coordinated strategy of intellectual convergence, all orchestrated from the shadows.
And let's be perfectly clear about this. EED wasn't just a theory, it became an operational tool. It was the common language, the unifying framework that allowed the government to connect its most secret, most high-risk research projects into one single coherent effort.
And here are the other key players in this network. You've got Charles Chase at Unlab, a former manager from Skunkworks, tackling quantum vacuum propulsion. You've got Richard Banduric deep into advanced metamaterials. These aren't just isolated efforts. These are distinct domains within a grade track portfolio, with Puthoff's EED sitting right at the center as the great unifier.
And this is the dispositive proof. It is not a coincidence that in late 2024, these key figures were suddenly brought together in government-sponsored forums. First, you have Puthoff and Chase at an NSF meeting. Then, Puthoff and Banduric on a NASA-affiliated podcast, with EED as the main topic. This reveals a managed network, a coordinated strategy to accelerate breakthroughs.
So, a theory is one thing. A coordinated research network is another. But how do you take that final, crucial step? How do you turn physics into hardware that's ready for a clandestine mission? Well, this brings us to the final and I think the most critical piece of this entire puzzle. The corporate entity built specifically to operationalize this physics. Meet Quantcom LLC. Now, it was co-founded by Puthoff himself, but look at his partner, Christopher Usibi, an analyst from the Rand Corporation.
And his specialty, modeling how new technology emerges by analyzing patents. This is not a normal startup, folks. The creation of Quantcomm signals a deliberate pivot away from pure research and toward the strategic control of key intellectual property for a very, very specific application.
So what's the one piece of tech they needed to lock down? The core patent is for a communication system, but this isn't any ordinary system. It uses those field-free potentials from Puthoff's EED theory to send signals that are completely 100% immune to interference from plasma. They can't be blocked, they can't be shielded, they just go right through.
And right here is exactly why that matters so much. Any high-power plasma platform, when it's operating, gets wrapped in a superheated plasma sheath. As you can see, conventional radio signals, totally blocked, 0% get through. But a signal using Qualcomm's tech, it penetrates that sheath like it isn't even there. It's a total game changer.
This capability, it's not just an interesting trick. It is the absolute mission-critical missing link for a platform like the clandestine CFR orb. It is the one technology required to maintain command and control during flight. This is the direct technological application, the straight line from Puthoff's theory to the hardware.
So let's just walk through the entire chain of events step by step. First, Puthoff develops his revolutionary EET theory. Second, the government uses that theory to unify a secret research network. Third, Quantcomm is created to control the key intellectual property. Fourth, that plasma-penetrating comms tech is perfected. Fifth, it's integrated into the CFR orb platform. And finally, clandestine operations like Operation MH370 suddenly become possible.
And that brings us to the final and frankly, deeply concerning conclusion. The physics pioneered by Hal Puthoff and developed by his curated network was successfully turned into functional hardware, it was integrated into a clandestine platform, and it enabled the synchronized, reality-bending operations that were captured in the MH370 orb video.
So you have a scientific network led by a generational genius that built the engine that breaks reality. And you have a clandestine government program that took that science and weaponized it. The theory is proven. The hardware is operational. The only question left is a chilling one. What happens now that the key is in the lock?